This story is taken from the Bible in Matthew chapter 26, verses 17 through 30. Jesus and his disciples were in Jerusalem for the Feast of Unleavened Bread, which is really 3 feasts all rolled into one. It started with Passover, and then came the Feast of Unleavened Bread, which lasted for 7 days, and it all ended with the Feast of First Fruits. All 3 feasts were celebrations that reminded everyone of the story of how God freed the Israelites from their slavery in Egypt. God told the Israelites that whoever put a special sign on their doorframe would be passed over by death and would be set free. And from that time on, the Israelites celebrated Passover. As the disciples were preparing a special meal for the Passover, it was time to celebrate the Festival of Unleavened Bread. On the first day of the Festival of Unleavened Bread, the disciples came to Jesus and asked, "Where do you want us to make preparations for you to eat the Passover?" The disciples knew that the meal would only include the meat of sacrifices and bread without yeast, which was basically flat bread. Jesus replied, "Go into the city to a certain man and tell him, 'The teacher says, my appointed time is near. I am going to celebrate the Passover with my disciples at your house.'" So the disciples did as Jesus had directed them, and prepared the meal and the table for the Passover at the house that was ready for them. The disciples would have known that there would be many Jews in Jerusalem for the Passover, and it would have been hard to find a house. So they may have been surprised when Jesus had a place already set aside for them to celebrate together. According to Jewish custom, they knew they had to wait until evening to start the meal. When evening came, Jesus sat at the table with the 12 disciples, and they ate a meal together. While they were eating, Jesus said something disturbing. "Truly I tell you, one of you will betray me." The disciples were very sad and confused. They began to say to him, one after the other, "Surely you don't mean me, Lord?" Jesus replied, "The one who has dipped his hand into the bowl with me will betray me." The disciples couldn't believe what they were hearing. One of them would betray their teacher and friend, Jesus. Jesus told the disciples that it would be very sad for the person who would betray him. After the other disciples had questioned Jesus, then Judas Iscariot, the one who would really betray him, said, "Surely you don't mean me, teacher?" Jesus answered, "You have said so." They continued eating, and Jesus took bread, and when he had said a prayer of thanksgiving, he broke it and gave some to his disciples, saying, "Take and eat. This is my body." Although this was not typically part of the Passover meal, the disciples did as Jesus said and ate the bread. Then he took a cup, and when he had given thanks, he gave it to them, saying, "Drink from this, all of you. This is my blood of the covenant, which is poured out for many for the forgiveness of sins." The word covenant means an arrangement or agreement that God makes with people. According to the Old Covenant or agreement, people who wanted to have a right relationship with God and forgiveness from their sins would show their part in the covenant by sacrificing an animal. Jesus was telling the disciples that he was going to become the sacrifice that would last from then on. Jesus said, "I tell you, I will not drink from this fruit of the vine from now on until that day when I drink it new with you in my Father's kingdom." They finished the meal, and then Jesus and the disciples sang a hymn together and went out to the Mount of Olives.